Welcome back to HQ. Shedeur Sanders is among other draft notables at the Shrine Bowl out in Frisco, Texas. His stock has shifted since the end of the regular season, where people thought he'd be a lock for top 2 in the draft. Since then, he's fallen slightly on many mock boards, including our guys that we have here at CBS Sports. And one of those guys is Ryan Wilson from the With the First Pick podcast. So, R-Dub, look, we know the draft process is fluid. Your mock drafts are always changing. But for argument's sake and for conversation's sake, where is Shedeur Sanders now than when he was compared at the end of the regular season, say, end of November, early December?
Yeah, Tommy, and that's going to be the question because nothing's changed. There hasn't been any more tape for us to watch about Shedeur to evaluate. It's just we're creating conversations as we get through this draft process. This is one of the first stops, of course. Then, of course, going to have the combine and the pro days and everything that follows after that. He's still QB2. For some, he's QB1, and the question becomes, how high is he going to go? I think one of the reasons he's not going number 2 in some of the mock drafts, both the CBS Sports and elsewhere, is because that's where the Cleveland Browns pick, and that could be perhaps a sticking point. Nothing obviously confirmed by Shedeur Sanders or his camp, but by virtue of the fact that Cleveland may not be a suitable landing spot for a quarterback looking to have success based on recent history. But I think in terms of what Shedeur is looking to do here is what everyone else is looking to do here, Tommy, and that's come here, ball out, have a great interview process. And if he practices, and the word on the street is he's going to practice, and that starts tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. local time, you will get to see who he is. I'm curious to see how tall he is, whether he's 6'1 or 6'2 or something else. I want to see his arm in person because that can end up being a big difference for NFL scouts, certainly, when they see these players in person. We saw Jaden Daniels in person last year at his pro day and Drake May the next day, and those guys had pretty big arms in person. So that's all part of the process, and that's all what we're interested in seeing here. And one thing quickly, Tommy, I spoke to Jimmy Horn earlier, the wide receiver from Colorado, who's a legit speed guy, 10.5, 100 guy, and he spent a lot of time talking up how great of a leader Shedeur is, how as many hits as he took in the pocket, he got himself up, didn't complain, and was always looking to make the next play. And I think that's what's going to sell this week and as we get through this draft process about who Shedeur Sanders is, other than the football player.
Ryan, do we have any idea how much practice time we'll see from Shedeur Sanders? I think there's, 3 or 4 practice sessions this weekend?
Yeah, there are 4 practice sessions, and if we get a handful, I'll be ecstatic about that because this isn't just a Shedeur Sanders thing, Tommy. We see players all the time who come to All-Star games with first or second round grades and have a great first practice, and maybe they come up with a quote-unquote hamstring injury and they don't practice the rest of the week, but for business decisions, and I understand that. So anything we get will be gravy. I don't know what his plans are going to be at the combine in terms of throwing there. We know Bryce Young didn't throw at the combine a few years ago, and the pro days will be scripted, and that'll give us another opportunity to see these players, but I hope to get at least 1, maybe 2 practices. And fingers crossed, I don't want to overpromise, Tommy, but the word on the street is that maybe tomorrow around 2 p.m. Eastern time, we'll get an opportunity to chat with Shedeur one-on-one. So I'm going to say a little prayer to the draft gods tonight, and hopefully that comes to fruition as well, because that'll be certainly something I'm looking forward to, and hopefully be something that you'll be interested in hearing.
So let's try to manifest this out loud right here on HQ. So let's just say you get Shedeur. You get to talk to him. What's the first question you're going to ask him, Arda?
I don't know enough about watches to ask him about watches, Tommy, so I'll lean on you for that. But I'm going to ask him, what is it going to be like to be in a situation where you're not going to be coached by your dad? Because that's been the entirety of his football career, certainly at high school and then in college at Jackson State and then at Colorado, because I would imagine that's a question NFL teams are interested in. I think he'll manage fine, but it is something different for him in terms of what has been his job as a college athlete and what will be his full-time job at the next level. What's it going to be like not to have Coach Prime on the sidelines in your ear? Presumably, now maybe there's a situation where Coach Prime ends up on the staff where Shedeur gets drafted. But that's going to be my first question. And then I'm going to ask him about the toughness and sort of the leadership qualities that he brought to Colorado this year and last year, because you would imagine if you took as many hits as he did, you would be frustrated at some point, and we never saw that on the field. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in his playmaking ability and his ability to play outside the pocket. He's not the athlete that his dad is. I think that's fair to say, but he's a pretty good athlete. So I got a long list of questions, Tommy, and we'll see if I get enough time to ask them all.
I hope you get that, my friend, and it'll be interesting to see what type of team/entourage he brings with him, because I know that's something that's been surrounding him during this draft process as well. You mentioned there's going to be some other guys out there. Give me one other name that you are really keen on this week.
I'm laughing, Tommy, because I was talking to producer Boney about this. My guy is Kyle McCord. I live in Central New York. He transferred from Ohio State to Syracuse. And producer Boney said, is this going to be your Mac Jones? Hopefully not. I was a big Mac Jones guy, had a great rookie season. I love what Kyle McCord was able to do in his one season at Syracuse. He absolutely balled out. He outplayed Cam Ward in that final regular season game when Miami came up to Syracuse. And I think he's going to have an opportunity this week to continue to make that name for himself. I've heard he could have day 2 buzz. I think day 2, day 3 right now is where he is. If he has a great week this week, Tommy, perhaps he makes his way into the day 2 conversation.
That's Ryan Wilson joining us here on HQ, and I hope at some point this weekend we'll also get Emory Hunt on board too, if he decides to show up and join us instead of that slumber that he's enduring right now out where you are. R-Dub, certainly appreciate it. Catch him on the With the First Pick podcast with Rick Spielman. Scan the QR code. Check him also out on YouTube or however you listen to your draft podcast.